Good to see you all. Good to see you all. We are going to continue discussing the laws of, now we're in the middle of the 9 days. Well, we are in the middle of the 3 weeks, but we are going to discuss the laws of the 9 days. We already started that last week, and we're going to continue this week, and then we're going to talk about the laws of Tisha B'Av. Okay, so let's jump in. Let's just pick up where we dropped off last time, and that is that there is a restriction against eating meat and drinking wine during the 9 days. Okay, those restrictions do not apply on Shabbos. They do not apply on Shabbos. I think I said one statement a little bit quickly last week, and it caused a little confusion. So I just want to be clear. If a person has to eat meat because of health reasons, so whatever diet they're on, not a diet of preference, but a diet of necessity, they must have meat. The doctor tells them they have to eat meat, then they are allowed to do so. That said, if it is just as good to have poultry, to have chicken instead, it's better always to have chicken than meat. But again, I was referring to people who have medical conditions. This does not mean that there's a carte blanche for anyone who does not need to have meat or chicken. You should not be having those things during the 9 days, again, with the exception of Shabbos. Okay, so Shabbos has a bit of a complication, and that's because you are, certainly to make Kiddush, when a person makes Kiddush on Shabbos, it's already Shabbos. That's fine, no questions asked. The problem is Saturday night. The problem is Matzei Shabbos, because the way we make Havdalah ideally is to use a cup of wine or grape juice to make Havdalah. Havdalah is made after Shabbos. So the question then is, what do we do? How do we drink this wine? Is it permitted? Is it not permitted? So some people go ahead and there is, within the laws of making Havdalah, there's a concept that if you do not have grape juice or wine, then you're allowed to use what is known as Chamar Medina. Chamar Medina means a significant drink, any drink that's seen as significant. So, a drink that would be served at a nice event. So, I don't know, coffee, a beer, something like that, even orange juice according to some. And so some people, and most say this is a mistake, I want to be clear, this is a mistake, will go ahead and on Saturday night during the 9 days, so meaning next week it's going to be the 9 days already. So that Saturday night, they'll go ahead and make Havdalah on a cup of beer. You should not do so. You should not do so, because the only time we do so is if you really don't have grape juice or wine. If you do have grape juice or wine, which you probably still have in your fridge or whatever, or, the wine not in the fridge, don't put the wine in the fridge. So then you should not do so. So what you should do is as follows. If you have a child who's between the ages of 6 and 9, some say it's best to make Havdalah and give it to the child. Some say even that is not okay, not ideal, because you should not be teaching them, if it's not good for you, it shouldn't be good for the child. And therefore, really the most ideal thing to do is you make regular Havdalah on Saturday night of the 9 days, okay? And that means that you make regular Havdalah on a cup of grape juice, on a cup of wine, and you should drink the majority of the cup. That's what you have to drink, and that's it. And that's basically what you should do. Again, you'll see, I don't know, I remember when I used to live in Pickwick, all these so I used to get a knock on my door. I guess they knew I had beer in my house. And all have some beer. So, I'm happy to give them my beer, but it's not really the right thing to do. Really, you should be making Havdalah on grape juice or wine. Okay, one more thing about meat and wine, and that is if a person attends a siyum. A siyum is done when a person completes a significant portion, usually like a book of Torah, like a book of Talmud, a set of Mishnayos, or whatever it is. A person is allowed to attend a siyum, and once they're at a siyum, you're allowed to have meat or wine. Okay, fine. Yes?
What if you want to cook something and add wine to it?
So if it's cooking wine and it's something which, the way the poskim say it is a little funny. They say, if you don't really taste the wine, it's okay. And I always wonder myself, if you don't really taste the wine, why are you putting the wine in, right? So it's probably better to avoid, but if it's a very small amount and it's not going to be discernible, then it would be allowed. Okay, so let's talk about a few other things. During the 9 days, a person should not swim. That is true for pleasure or for exercise. If a person has to swim for medical purposes, let's say a person, whatever it is, for recuperation, they are told they have to swim daily to be able to do so, then there's what to rely upon to do so, but otherwise a person should not be swimming. There are two reasons for this prohibition. One is a prohibition against bathing, which we'll talk about in a moment. But also prohibition against doing anything which could be remotely dangerous. Okay, I know it's remote, but at the end of the day, we're very careful during the 9 days. We don't do anything that could be remotely dangerous. Certainly to go, people avoid boating during the 9 days for this reason, because I can tell you there's a strict prohibition against boating, but it's typically practiced that a person does not boat during this time. Again, it is seen as something that could be dangerous, and historically, bad things have happened during the 9 days. we try to avoid all such things, okay? You should try to avoid a court case during the 9 days. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do jury duty. It means a court case for yourself during the 9 days should be avoided. You should also try to avoid scheduling any medical procedures during the 9 days. If it's something which you can only have then you do it. But if it's something where they say, hey, we have a date, August 1st or August 10th, you take August 10th, and you avoid August 1st, which is during the 9 days, right? Again, that's only if it could be postponed without any financial, if the doctor says you need to get the surgery done right now, you do right now. If the doctor says if you don't do this now, you're going to do it in 10 years, like in 7 months, which sometimes happens, then you do it right now. But again, if all things are equal and it's no big deal to push it off a little bit, then you should push it off, okay? The custom is not to cut nails during the week of Tisha B'Av. During the week of Tisha B'Av, ideally not to cut nails during this time. Fine. There are different opinions about setting and washing a sheitel during the 9 days. We spoke about doing so during the 3 weeks is fine. You should avoid doing so during the 9 days. When it comes to shaving legs and plucking, waxing hair, that could be done until the week of Tisha B'Av. That means this year, that means the entire time, because Tisha B'Av is on Sunday, so that means that there's no prohibition against doing so. Fine. Okay, those are some of the laws. Yes?
So Sfardim who only do Shvuah Shechaba, they don't have it this
I believe they don't have any of the restrictions this year. Yeah. Okay. Sometimes it's good to be Sephardi. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about Erev Tisha B'Av. Now, Erev Tisha B'Av, the eve of Tisha B'Av, usually has a number of restrictions. This year, Erev Tisha B'Av falls out on which day of the week? Falls out on Shabbos. So things are a little bit different. So let's talk about what the unique laws. So normally in a regular year from midday and on, that's when it's already seen as like we're almost there, and therefore some extra restrictions apply. The problem is you have two conflicting directions. On the one hand, Tisha B'Av is a day of mourning, and you need to mourn. On the other hand, Shabbos is a day of celebration, joy, and it's forbidden to mourn, right? Like during Shiva, you don't mourn on Shabbos, right? Or at least not overtly, right? So there's this conflict over here. So I'll go through a couple of the halachos that apply specifically this year. In a normal year, you cannot study Torah from midday and on. Torah is something which should give us joy. If it doesn't, we got to work harder, but it's something which should give us joy, and therefore we are not allowed to study Torah from midday and on. On Shabbos, that falls out on Erev Tisha B'Av, it's a little more complicated. Do we? Yes, no. How do we go about this? So the ideal thing is not to study Torah from midday and on, but you could study sections that relate to the destruction of the temple. Anything that relates to Tisha B'Av in a general sense, you are allowed to study and encouraged to study. Okay. Now, normally on Erev Tisha B'Av, we have something known as a Sudas Hamafsekes. We're not going to get into the details right now, but normally it's a special meal that's eaten right before Tisha B'Av on the floor with limited food items. We don't have that on Shabbos because you wouldn't want to have like a limited meal which is meant to be a mourner's meal on Shabbos. So rather on Shabbos, that when it's Erev Tisha B'Av, you have a regular Sudat Shlishi, Shalosh Shudas, you have a regular meal, totally regular meal. You could eat it with other people, meaning the Suda HaMafsekes normally is eaten by oneself. You sit apart from one another, but on Shabbos, Erev Tisha B'Av, you sit together as a family, as a group, as friends, whatever it is, and you eat normally. Okay, yes?
So last time you said you're not supposed to do any preparation. So if usually we just don't always wash for Shalshudas, we'll do fruit or whatever, but if I'm going into a fast, I'm going to want to...
That's fine. You can't do things which are like over the top overt.
It's a Gatorade. We shouldn't...
You could. I said no. I said I didn't do it because I felt uncomfortable doing it. But it's something which is like, that is in my mind, like the only time I will ever touch a Gatorade is for a fast day.
Right.
That said, having a big Shalshudas, okay, if your friend invited you over for Shalshudas, you go to Shalshudas, right? It's like in your house, you typically may not wash. Okay, but it's not like there's nothing overt. Yeah, 100%. You could and should. Lots of watermelon. That's fine. As long as you're not saying eat up because we're fasting, right? That you should not do. That is seen as preparation.
But that's
Yeah.
obviously what we're doing.
Correct, but you're not doing so explicitly. As long as you're not doing so explicitly, it's not considered hachana. Again, hachana is you should not do something which is going to desecrate the spirit of Shabbos. You're eating shal shudas. You're not desecrating the spirit of Shabbos. That's fine. It's fine. 100%. Yes. That's a good question. There are different opinions. Some say there's what's rely upon. There's what's rely upon. Some say if you don't normally, which most people don't, then you shouldn't. But there's what's rely upon. So if you feel strongly that like I need to have chicken, that's going to hold me over the fast. Like, sorry.
protein.
Will last longer. Yeah, there's definitely what to rely upon. Definitely what to rely upon. Okay, here's the most important thing, which people, I can't say many times, people will tell me whoops on this one, and that is that although it's still Shabbos, and therefore, we keep our Shabbos clothes on, and all these different things, the fast, though, starts at sunset, right? Shabbos doesn't end until nightfall, right? But the fast starts at sunset. So fasting is not overt, and therefore you start meaning normally on Tisha B'Av, the fast will always start. Yom Kippur or Tisha B'Av, the fast always start on sunset, but it's confusing with Shabbos because we're still in Shabbos, and yet we're starting the fast. The answer is yes, because it's not overt. We're not like doing something which, I'm not eating right now. Am I fasting? No, I just had breakfast 2 minutes ago. But the point is that there's nothing overt about not eating, and therefore we are not allowed, but therefore mandated to fast, and the fast begins at sunset, not at nightfall. Okay, so very, very important to remember. People forget this sometimes. Okay.
So you can't brush your teeth.
You can't brush your teeth. Yeah, you'll survive. Yes. What about making Havdalah? Good. That's exactly what I'm going to get to next. So what about Havdalah? Okay, so Havdalah, every Motzei Shabbos, we're supposed to make Havdalah. Now, Havdalah is normally made over a couple of things, a cup of wine, spices, etc., etc. So what you do is like this. You kind of split up Havdalah. You make after Shabbos, you make Havdalah, you just make the bracha on the candle. Borei ma'orei baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, borei ma'orei ha'esh. Stop there, okay? Now, if you go to a shul, they'll typically say for Eicha, which is something that both men and women should do, they will typically say that bracha right before Eicha to help everyone fulfill their obligation, okay? You should remember to say, Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chal, which is the one-liner that we say, which kind of is like a substitute. Not really a substitute, but sort of a substitute for Havdalah. So you should say, for men who daven Marav, there's an extra paragraph we say during Marav, Atah Chanatanu, but women should say, Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chal. Okay, then you only say the blessing on the candle. Whether, if you go to shul and you're doing it, then someone says it for you there, that's fine. If you missed that or whatever, you can do it on your own. Okay, and then after Tisha B'Av, on Sunday night, after the fast is over, the first thing you do is you make the bracha of Hagefen and the paragraph of meaning the last paragraph of Havdalah. In other words, you skip Hine Kel Yeshuasi, you skip Besamim, right? There's no Besamim on this year for Havdalah. But what you do is you say Hagefen, and you say the final bracha, and then you drink that grape juice. Probably don't want to make Havdalah on wine after a full day of fasting, but hey, you do you. Okay, fine. Now, if a person, good, that makes sense? Those are the halachas of Havdalah. Fine. Now, someone who is not fasting, okay? Now, there are people who it is forbidden for them to fast. They're ill, they're recuperating, whatever it is, and they're not supposed to fast. They should make Havdalah on the cup beforehand. In other words, let's say a person is going to be eating on Saturday nights because they have to. Good. So you make Havdalah, you say the bracha Gefen, you make the bracha on the fire, you don't do the bracha on the Mesamim at all. There's no bracha on the Mesamim. You make the bracha on the fire, you make the bracha on the grape juice, and you make the rest of Havdalah. If you're breaking the fast in the middle of the day because you have to eat, then you do the same thing. Now, if a person's in
If you're breaking the fast in the middle of the day,
anyone who's breaking the fast, then they should make Havdalah.
do they make Havdalah when they break the fast? If they're going to fast till Chatzos?
Let's say fast till Chatzos. So then, Saturday night, Motzei Shabbos, you go ahead and you make the bracha on the fire, okay? And then they're going to fast till Chatzos. So at Chatzos, at 1:13, I think is Chatzos, this Tisha B'Av, they would go ahead, over a cup of grape juice, say Hagefen, and the final bracha of Havdalah, and then they would eat. Now, if a person, sometimes, that's a person who is planning to break their fast. Sometimes a person is like, I don't know, they fainted or whatever it is, they need to eat. Don't give them a cup of grape juice, okay? Help them, give them a cup of water, give them a cup of Powerade. They can make Havdalah later. In other words, we're obviously talking about a situation where you have the time to make Havdalah, right? I just want to be clear about that, right? In other words, if it's a dire situation, then you go ahead and you eat regularly. I'm talking about a situation where, where a person is able to, they know they're going to be breaking the fast, and then you make the rest of Havdalah before you break the fast. Okay? Good? Fine.
Can you talk about shiur? Are you going to be talking about shiur?
Yeah, let's talk about it very quickly. No shiurim. No shiurim, and I mean that seriously. There is so there is a machlokas poskim. Let me take a step back. The question, let me take one more thing just about this unique year, then I'll come back to that question. So Erev Tisha B'Av, we typically are not supposed to go on pleasure walks. We're not supposed to go on pleasure walks. So which is, Shabbos, sometimes people like going for a walk. So really, ideally on Shabbos afternoon, if you're going to a shiur, if you're going to whatever, you're going to someone's house, but to go on like a long stroll is seen as something that's one of the prohibited activities. So you don't do so on Erev Tisha B'Av that falls out on Shabbos. Yes. So if it's for a Shabbos meal, it's totally fine to get together with friends. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about shiurim. So if a person does have to break, so again, I want to be very clear. If a person is ill in any way, ask your doctor and ask your rabbi about eating on Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is, if we have a hierarchy of fast and importance, Yom Kippur is the most important. That's biblically mandated. Tisha B'Av is under it, and then you have the other fast after it. Okay, but bottom line is, if a person is ill, please don't push yourself. Ask a shaila, ask someone to speak to your doctor, speak to a rabbi about what you are able to do. Now, on Yom Kippur, if a person has to eat, typically what we would tell them to do is something called shiurim. Shiurim, it literally means measurements. And what that means is that because the Torah says do not eat and do not drink, the biblical definition of eating is a certain measurement of food in a certain interval of time. To be considered biblically, when it says eating, it does not consider eating if you just have like a crumb of food. Now, you and I will say in English that's called eating, but halachically from the Torah, eating it has to be a meaningful eating, and that's a, kazayis kedei achilas pras. It's a certain amount within a certain amount of time. And therefore, what we do on Yom Kippur, if a person has to eat, typically, if they're able to do this, then what we typically do is we will say, okay, have a little bit of food that's smaller than that measurement. Wait 9 minutes, let's say, which is the amount of time called kedei achilas pras, the regular time of eating. And then you can have another small portion, and then wait another 9 minutes, another small portion, etc., etc. And that way, you've never really eaten, at least from a biblical perspective. Okay? That's what we call shiurim. So for most people who have to eat on Yom Kippur, that's what we tell them to do. There's one exception, and that is often sometimes with an eating disorder. It's you shouldn't do that, because the eating disorder sometimes it's the control of the food, and doing it something that actually could be more damaging. So again, these are complex situations, just putting this out there to, as a background. But in a regular fashion where someone is ill and there's no problem to wait. It might mean missing some time in shul, but that's far more important. Then that's what you do. You do it at the intervals. Tisha B'Av, most poskim say, if you're supposed to eat, you eat. There are some, I want to be clear, there are some who say that you should do the same Yom Kippur thing. The majority, the mainstream view is that no, if you're supposed to be eating on Tisha B'Av, you eat on Tisha B'Av. And that's why I push back in terms of the shiurim. Again, there are those who say you should do the shiurim. That said, if let's say you're someone who, let's say you have like whatever the issue is that or your doctor tells you could get by with just drinking. Throughout the day, you could just drink juice and Powerade and all these things, which give you enough hydration and sugars, whatever it is, and that would be fine. Then that would be preferable than eating and drinking. In other words, if you are in a situation where you are ill and the illness would allow or the recuperation will allow you to just drink and not eat, that would still be something we would distinguish between. Okay, again, I'm speaking in generalities just to give like a lay of the land. Obviously, if a person has a specific condition, they should speak to their doctor. Use these next 2 weeks. Usually it's like Friday afternoon at like 7 o'clock. They're like, oh, I couldn't get in touch with my doctor. I can't get in touch with them. Their office is closed. Go figure. So speak to your doctor now if you have a question about eating, not eating, and now you have the parameters like, okay, could I get away with drinking? Do I need to eat and drink? Fine. And then basically, but that said, if you need to eat or drink, then the normative view on Tisha B'Av as opposed to Yom Kippur is you just eat and drink regularly. Okay? Questions?
And there's value to waiting till after Chatzos.
There is value to waiting after. There is a minhag. It's what the source is. It's quite, but there is such a established tradition that we wait till Chatzos. Yes. Yeah. So medicine. So let's review what we said last. We spoke about this last time. Don't avoid taking medicine. Sorry. No, that's okay. It's important to review. So don't avoid taking medicine. And a person should be taking the medicine. If it's medicine you have to take daily, you need to take that medicine, 100%. So you take that medicine. If you could swallow the medicine without water, no problem whatsoever. That is totally 100% fine. The earlier in the day, typically, the more saliva you have, the easier it's going to be to swallow. That would be the ideal thing to do. So you want to take that medicine if you're able to. That said, if you have a hard time swallowing without water, so the next best thing is to use a little bit of like what we'll call bitter water. Okay, so we'll take like some vinegar or something like that and and take a little bit of water with like vinegar and kick it back. Now, some people that will end their fast right there and then. They'll be like just gagging and whatever it is. So on Tisha B'Av, not the same as Yom Kippur, on Tisha B'Av, there is what's relied upon to use a little bit of water to take the pill, okay? Take your pills, okay? The other thing you could do, and it's opposed to vinegar, which is a lot easier, I forgot to mention, and again, you have to speak to your doctor to make sure, you have to crush, you just drop it in the water, right? And let it dissolve a little bit. So basically, you'll take, let's say you have a tablet. So if it's all capsules, it's not going to work. But if you have a tablet, you could, and again, please speak to your doctor because some this could throw off the way the medication works for you. But let's say you take the capsule, you put it in the water, let it dissolve a little bit, so the water is now a little murky, right? That's not good water, okay? That's no longer called water, and therefore use that and then take all your pills, whatever, together with that. And again, some medications, especially ones which have like slow release, it's not ideal to do. So again, you want to check in with someone who knows what they're talking about, not me, about the medication to tell you if that's okay with this medicine. Yes? So I think it's too sweet. It has to be something just really like not good.
Salt water?
Yeah, salt water. I wouldn't recommend that. That's like it's going to impact you more negatively than vinegar. Vinegar, it just tastes nasty, but salt water, you're going to get like really thirsty. Yeah, so I wouldn't recommend that. Some people take like really strong tea essence, like nothing else added, just like the essence, which is like black tea. It's just like really dark and nasty. Excuse me. But yeah. Yes.
What is like the measurement for like if you're doing the medication and you're like making it murky? How much water?
It's a good question. So you should use a little bit. It shouldn't be done. It shouldn't be should use a little bit. It's hard to I can't like sorry. What's like a medicine cup? Yeah, a medicine cup is a safe amount. Yeah, a medicine cup is a safe amount. Like the exactly. Depends on the size of the mouthwash. I don't know. I have big ones on top of the scope, like on top of cough syrup. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like like the small, like a shot, like a 1 ounce, type of shot glass type of thing. Yeah, that would be like a safe measurement. And again, on Tisha B'av, if that's not working or whatever it is, or you can't do that with your if you have capsules, then there is what's rely upon to use like that same amount, like that amounts of water to kick back the medicine. Yes.
But if you take quite a few pills,
Mm-hmm.
and so that like little amount, it would not be enough for all of them.
Right. So what you could do is do that a few times. I mean, if let's say you have 2 caps, let's say you have, I don't know, let's say 3 capsules and 3 tablets. So what you'd want to do is put like 1 tablet in, let it dissolve a little bit, and then take like 2 capsules, swell back, and then do it again with the same type of thing. Last week, someone was concerned that Tylenol or Advil don't dissolve, so I did an experiment, and they do dissolve. Okay, so Tylenol and Advil, I have a murky cup of water, which full of.
They have coated ones.
This was a coated one. Yeah. I mean, it takes a little longer, but it dissolves. It's not like a regular tablet which goes like immediately, right? But this it dissolves. Okay, good. Any other questions about this? Okay, but important, do not skip medication. If you need to be taking medication on a daily basis, you don't have a right. You're not allowed to skip medication. We need to stay healthy. That is imperative, and therefore, please do so. Okay, let's talk about the activities forbidden on Tisha B'av. Okay, so eating and drinking, again, obviously with exceptions to someone who needs to. Okay. Did that? Okay. So there is also prohibition of intimacy on Tisha B'av. There are regular, what we call something called harchakos, which is that there's certain, mostly rabbinic prohibitions that between a husband and wife of limiting contact, limiting interaction, physical interaction on Tisha B'av. In regular, when a woman would be considered a nida, those would apply according to most on the night of Tisha B'av. So on the night of Tisha B'av, according to most, those restrictions apply. During the day, they do not apply. There's some are even lenient at night, if need be. But generally speaking, an intimacy is forbidden the entire day, Tisha B'av day, the entire Tisha B'av. But when it comes to the restrictions called archakos, those only, according to most, only apply at the night of Tisha B'av. Okay. Another prohibition is studying Torah on Tisha B'av. That said, anything which relates to Tisha B'av is allowed. They point out that ironically, you go to Kinos, you end up learning like a lot more Torah than you do on a typical day, because people are like giving like full-fledged shiurim. I happen to love when we're not going to have him this year, but we've brought Rabbi Katz over here, and he'll just like literally read Josephus to us, which is great, because like that's not Torah. That's just like that's what you're supposed to be doing, focusing on the stories. But that said, the custom has evolved that any teaching that relates to Tisha B'av is permitted, and fine, and therefore the kinos that we do are totally acceptable. Okay, but you should not just like pick up for those learning Daf Yomi or Amud Yomi. Everyone's welcome to join us. We're about to start Pesachim tomorrow. There are many women who come, so you can join them. But the point is that what we've done in the past is Matzei Tisha B'av. So right after the fast, if you like half after the fast, they come to my house and we learn, and we do because it's a daily learning. So you don't do it on Tisha B'av, you do it after Tisha B'av, and that's it. Okay. Washing oneself in any way is prohibited. This includes, as Karen pointed out, which is troublesome to many of us, brushing one's teeth should not be done on Tisha B'av. Yep. Okay. The good news is you don't talk to people too much on Tisha B'av. So just You walk around like this. Okay. You are allowed to wash your fingers upon waking up. We are supposed to wash our hands. Until at the time we wake up, you're allowed to wash, but not the entire hands, which we normally do on Tisha B'Av. You wash until the fingers. However, if your hands became dirty, if your hands became soiled in any way, that's not called pleasure washing. That's called cleaning yourself from dirt. And therefore, if your hand gets dirty, whatever it is, for any reason, you are allowed to go ahead and wash whatever got dirty, and that is okay. If a person is bathing a child, okay, this always comes up on Tisha B'Av, my child needs to get a bath on Sunday. Great, no problem. Your child get a bath. My hands are going to get wet. Not only my hands going to get wet, they're going to splash in my whole. I'm going to take like a mini shower. I'm joking, but that is fine. In other words, any water that you're getting there, that's not pleasure. You are doing that to wash them, and that's okay. The same thing with washing dishes. If when you wash dishes, your hands get wet, you don't wear gloves, your hands get wet, that's fine. That you're not washing your hands for pleasure, and therefore all those things are okay. Okay? So washing dishes should be for a different reason. Meaning, washing dishes you should not. There is a strong minhag that we don't like do anything that is like any cleaning of any sort until after chatzos. But that's because we don't do any cleaning. But if no, you don't have to. Your kid needs a bath. You're allowed a bath. I mean, again, you try. We try for the first part of the day. I mean, thank you. I wasn't going to mention this. I should mention this. For the first half of the, we will mention this. We'll get back to this actually. Okay, so we'll come back to that point. Applying creams. If a person has any like cream for eczema or dry hands or whatever it is, that is not included in the prohibition. A person is allowed to put on ointments, things of that nature. Ideally, a woman should not put on makeup on Tisha B'Av. Okay. Deodorant is allowed. That is not like seen as pleasurable. That is seen as just a deterrent from bad smell. And therefore, a person is allowed to put on deodorant on Tisha B'Av. Okay. Okay. Additionally, a person should not wear shoes that have any leather. Okay. There is a massive debate about wearing Crocs. I don't know about you, but I find my Crocs to be much more comfortable than my shoes. So therefore, the question is this really appropriate? Right? The whole point of taking off your shoes is it's a sign of mourning, it's a sign of distress, but yet wearing something even more comfortable. So there are some who say you should not wear Crocs. That said, the normative minhag is that you are allowed to wear Crocs. The point is that you're not wearing your leather shoes because you're still showing that you're, mourning, and therefore it's totally fine to wear Crocs. Anything that is not leather is allowed to be worn. Okay. Now, this year it gets a little tricky. You just have to be careful. Again, Motzei Shabbos, because maybe you're wearing like Shabbos shoes, which might be leather, whatever it is. When Shabbos is over, you should take those off and switch over to, your non-leather shoes.
Is that things like watch bands that are leather?
That's fine. It's only belts, watch bands, headbands, I don't know, whatever, anything else. It's only shoes. Only prohibition on the shoes. Okay. Sorry? There's no halacha not to wear jewelry. Some people have a custom, but it's not you're 100% allowed to wear jewelry if you'd like. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Just a question for straightening up, because after Shabbos, there's some things that what do you do?
If things are going to get spoiled, meaning anything that's going to get spoiled, you're allowed to put away. Meaning there's anything that's going to get that's be spoiled, you could put away. But really like cleaning up, cleaning up should be avoided after Shabbos, until Chatzos the next day.
Running the dishwasher, things that are smells and.
If it's going to smell bad, then you can run the dishwasher. But assuming it's, you don't open it and it's whatever. If it's going to smell bad and you're doing it then it's okay. If it's going to get in the way, for example, in my house, I have a bunch of little kids. We're going to eat shalosh probably in a kitchen table, right? And then the kids are going to come to have their meals later on. They're not going to eat their meal on top of or shalosh. Okay, so we're going to move that stuff and put it in the sink, but we're not going to wash the dishes. If you could avoid putting on the dishwasher, I would. Your garbage gets overflow. Your garbage is full. You take out the garbage, right? But I'm saying in terms of the regular cleanup, after Shabbos, anything that could be avoided should definitely be avoided. Other things, again, if you need that space, you need to move things off the table because again, someone's going to be eating there, whatever it is, you'd be allowed to do so. Yeah. Good? Okay. Fine. Greeting each other. Okay, this is actually, I find to be one of the hardest things on Tisha B'Av, and that is you're not supposed to greet one another on Tisha B'Av. Okay? The challenge is it's very natural for us. Okay? It's very natural for us to just say, hey, hi. And we're really not supposed to. So it's and that's really mourners are not supposed to do the same thing. It's when a person's really down, it's hard to greet someone, and we're supposed to, even if we don't feel it, we're supposed to create a feeling of being down over the loss of the base of Mikdash and Yerushalayim, and therefore we are not supposed to greet each other the entire day. It gets hard when especially pick up a phone. That's how we pick up a phone. We say hello. So people say yes. or they say their name. It's Yisrael Motzins on the, whatever it is. But basically, we're not supposed to greet. We're not supposed to greet. If someone greets you, you are allowed to respond. And as much as we're trying to create an ambiance of not being so excited, the last thing we want to do is offend someone on the day we're supposed to be working on, being more, together. So therefore, if someone does greet us, you are allowed to greet them in response. Some say you should try to diminish it in some way. Like if you normally say, whatever, just try to limit it a little bit. But bottom line is, if someone greets you, you're allowed to respond. Yes.
What about saying good morning or good night?
So it should be avoided. It should be avoided. And again, if you tell you if the best you discuss it with the people you're around beforehand, so no one's offended. Hey, why didn't they say good morning to me this morning? Yeah.
Asking how someone's doing, is that considered greeting? How are you? That's usually the response after hi.
Yeah. If that's your hello, then I would avoid it as well. Yeah. It should just It should. We're not in that space. We're not supposed to be in that space.
With a mourner, sometimes when you see a mourner, you want to ask them how they're doing. So is that considered?
So you're saying, strictly speaking, for a mourner, no. Strictly speaking, you are allowed to say, "How are you?" But if you're saying, meaning if you're checking in with someone, you generally, meaning you see a mourner, how are you holding up? Actually, ask them. Then that's not a greeting. That you're asking them how they're doing. Okay. But if it's your way of saying, "How are you? How are you? How are you?" Then that's your greeting. That's gonna be the challenge. Okay. Okay. It does not apply while traveling. In other words, you do not have to sit on the floor of your car while you drive. To be able to get. So if you're driving, you sit in the. Did I skip something? I skipped something. Yeah. Okay. Okay. You're not supposed to sit on a high chair. I'm sorry. Okay. You have to sit on a low stool until halachic midday. Okay, and that's why in Tisha B'Av, right, people are sitting on the floor. You're supposed to sit on a low stool. That is only for someone who is able to do so. If you have a bad back, if it's hard for you to sit down, you sit in a regular chair. Do not stress out. The whole point is that you should, you don't have to pain yourself. The point is you can't enjoy yourself. So sitting in a regular chair is enjoyable. Sitting on the floor is annoying, hard on my knees, and whatever it is, okay. But thank God I can sit on the floor. I sit on a low stool. That's okay. If it's very, very hard for you, for any reason to sit on the floor, then you should sit on a regular chair. Okay. All this applies until halachic midday. Okay, the middle of the day when we divide the day with halachic hours, and that is 1:13 in Baltimore on next Sunday. Not next Sunday. 2 Sundays from 2 weeks Sunday. We spoke about this. 2 Sundays from today. 2 weeks from today. So it'll be a 1:13. Okay. A person should not work during the first half of the day, and this goes back to what you were saying. You also shouldn't be doing anything. You should be entirely focused on Tisha B'Av for the first half of the day. Okay, so that means that you should be, if you could go to shul, you go to shul. There's 4 trillion videos, a whole industry spawned thanks to Tisha B'Av. So whatever, that's great. If you want to watch these Tisha B'Av videos, which are beautiful messages, that's great too. You should really be focused on Tisha B'Av during the first half of the day and not focused on anything else. And therefore, a person should not be tidying up their house during the first half of the day. And that's what we meant before. Again, if you need the space, someone, again, you clearly, eating on the table, now people are going to use it later, great. You move it out. But to do a cleanup during this time is inappropriate because we're really supposed to be focused. Similarly, we're not supposed to work for the first half of the day. This year is a lot easier because it's Sunday. Sometimes it's not so easy. It's Tuesday. Some people own their own companies and it's very hard. You don't have to lose money. So if it's going to be an actual financial loss, then you'd be allowed to do so. But ideally, if you could push off your work to start your workday at 1:13, that would be the right ideal thing to do. But again, if it's going to cause a loss and you're unable to do so, then you would be allowed to work during the first part of the day. As much as it could be avoided, I would strongly encourage it. Yes?
I don't know if you're gonna get to this, but I want to know about what about reading for pleasure, watching entertainment.
So I would avoid it. Again, if a person, is in a situation where okay, the only way they're going to get through the fast is if these Tisha B'Av videos are overwhelming and it's way too many tears. I don't have enough tissues in my house and I need to watch something, not Schindler's List or something, whatever, then okay, then whatever, it'd be okay. But ideally, you should really, on Tisha B'Av, the first half of the day, we're most stringent about really focusing on Tisha B'Av, but even the second half of the day, a person should not be reading for pleasure, a person shouldn't be reading the news, a person shouldn't be catching up on emails, you really, as much as possible, to be doing things that are either Tisha B'Av related or quote unquote neutral. You shouldn't be distracted. We're not supposed to be distracting ourselves. As best as possible, we're supposed to be focusing on Tisha B'Av. So take a nap, take a nap if you need to, if there are things you need to do, but to get lost in a great book or get lost in a movie, it's not the ideal thing to do. And thank God there's a whole lot out there of other stuff. Again, if it's overwhelming for a person and they can't watch, I can't watch none of these videos, okay, then there's what's rely upon. Yes, sorry. Oh.
I want to go back to cleaning. I heard that there's a minhag dafka to clean your house after chatzos. 'cause Mashiach
Getting ready for Mashiach. Sounds vaguely familiar. I can't tell you where the source for that, but it sounds vaguely familiar.
But you
Yeah,
pronounce that, right?
it's
Interesting.
mostly Sephardi minhag.
Interesting.
That the women would like begin to like get everything ready.
Beautiful.
For Mashiach to come.
Beautiful. Yes.
You have a cleaning lady that comes during the 9 days, and normally she changes sheets. Are you allowed to let her change sheets?
So she should avoid changing the sheets during the 9 days. Again, if the sheets are soiled, dirty, sweaty, whatever it is, like they really need to be changed. But if you could set it up that they get washed before the 9 days, that would be the recommendation. Yeah. Sorry, was there another hands? Okay. Okay. There's a.
I always feel like napping seems like the wrong thing to do.
It's a long day. It's totally fine to nap. It's totally fine to nap. Again, if you could avoid it, it's a long day. It's okay to nap. Minhag olam is to nap. Don't be so hard on yourself.
Say, like, I'm gonna go take a nap, and then I sleep way too long, and I'm like, okay, was that really appropriate?
Okay, but look, you spend part of the day as much as you can with focusing on Tisha B'Av, but we have to be realistic as well, and to nap as opposed to like watching a movie or reading a book that we're really going to enjoy, the nap is the better thing to do. Okay, there is a minhag that when we sleep on Tisha B'Av night, then we sleep in a less comfortable fashion. It's not an obligation, but it is a minhag, and it's an old minhag. It's brought down like people used to sleep with a rock instead of a pillow. I don't know how that worked, but there are some who sleep on the floor. There's some who sleep. They just do something a little less. If you sleep with like 2 pillows, 1 pillow. If you sleep with 1 pillow, no pillows. Again, if you have a bad back, if you have whatever, like don't do this. Like, again, it's a minhag. This is not distinct from everything we're talking about. This is a minhag. It's a custom. So it's a nice thing to do if you're able to do it and you're still going to sleep that night. To do something a little less comfortable, that's great. But if if you're not going to sleep the whole day at night because of this, or you're going to be in pain, it's not the right thing to do. Okay. Okay. One more thing, and that is after Tisha B'Av. So again, this year after Tisha B'Av, what we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do is finish Havdalah. So we're going to say Hagefen and the last blessing of Havdalah. Men have the custom of saying Kiddush Levana, and that's typically said after Tisha B'Av, so it'll be said then. Other thing which is important to note, and that is most years. There's some years which are exceptional because of Shabbos, but not this year, and that is that the restrictions of the 9 days apply. So our tradition has it that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed on the 9th of Av, but it continued burning through the 10th of Av, okay? The day after Tisha B'Av, okay? So because of that, the restrictions apply at least till midday of all the 9 days restrictions, not the Tisha B'Av restrictions, but all the 9 days restrictions apply until the 10th of Av, till midday. So Monday 1:13 is when we're allowed to start laundering. That's when we're allowed to have meat. That's when we, doing all the different restrictions we had during the 9 days, all apply until the 10th of Av at midday. Now, I don't think I talked about washing up on the 9 days. I don't know why I omitted that. Okay, so let's talk about that briefly because that's, I think, very important. And that is that if you look at the poskim, if you look at the Shulchan Aruch and others, what they say is that during the 9 days, you cannot take a shower, you cannot take a bath. Okay, don't do that. What I'm going to say is as follows, and that is that it is brought down, later poskim. That is if you're living in the reason for that is that was seen like they didn't bathe on a regular basis. They would bathe like some places weekly, some places monthly. Like their hygiene was very, very, very different than our hygiene. Thank God we live in a much better time, and we have running water and all that. And therefore, showering according to many, I shouldn't say most, according to many, certainly in a climate like this where it is brutally hot and sweaty outside, is not seen as something which you do for pleasure. It's something you do because it's basic hygiene. You put on deodorant, you shower. Like you're not doing it for fun. You're doing it because you need to clean yourself off, because if not, you'd be a mess. So there are those who are pretty strict about not showering during the 9 days, and that's fine. There are others, and there's a spectrum of views. There are some who say, okay, you could shower, but take a freezing cold shower. There are others who say, no, as long as it's not a hot shower, as long as it's like warm, it's like bearable, completely bearable. It's not, but you're just sitting in the shower, luxuriating in hot water. But as long as you're taking like a regular, normal, fast-ish shower, and the water's not piping hot, and it's just basically, it's bearable, it's comfortable enough that you could sit there, then to do so during the 9 days is totally acceptable. And that is what I tell people to do. So if a person takes a daily shower, take a daily shower, be a little quicker than usual, maybe a little warmer than a little cooler than usual. It shouldn't be cold. It should be comfortable, enough that you could sit there. But you could take a regular shower during the 9 days, because we're not taking showers nowadays to avoid, again, we're not doing it for fun, we're doing it because we feel not so good when we don't take a shower. Okay, and therefore, again, showering is totally fine, and the same thing would be over here, especially because you went from Shabbos into Sunday, and so you could Tisha B'Av on Sunday night, you'd have the same restrictions as the 9 days. So you take a quicker shower, you wash yourself off quickly, but that would be totally fine. Okay? Okay. Those are the laws of the 9 days, those laws of Tisha B'Av. And I think that's all I have. Yes?
So I know that my husband's gonna have to, he can't fast.
Okay.
So if he's making Havdalah when he eats after Chatzos, who makes Havdalah for me?
Right. So if you listen to his Havdalah, do you fulfill it? You technically could fulfill.
Yeah.
Yeah, you technically could fulfill your Havdalah, but you should probably say Havdalah again. You should probably.
Like, I know there's that thing, women.
Yeah, you could say. Yeah, you could say it. You could say it again. Technically, he could say it again for you, but you should say Havdalah. You should say it's better for you to say Havdalah after the fast, and not have him fulfill your obligation at that point. Yes.
What about someone who has trouble breaking their fast on wine or grape juice?
Okay, so then if you could do it on you could do it on orange juice. You could do it on orange juice. You give it to someone else. Technically, someone else at the table could drink it, right? In other words, as long as meaning you can make Havdalah on something. I don't have to have a sip of the wine as long as someone at the table is drinking.
If there's something broken, I got then someone else can drink the wine.
Exactly. Okay, should have a bottom line is yes, these are all restrictions so that we fulfill the halachos. But what's it called? But the important thing is that we are thinking about the point of these restrictions is not to make us miserable. It's to remind us the fact that our world is imperfect, that we live in a broken world. Unfortunately, we don't need so many reminders, but this is meant to be a reminder. The Beis HaMikdash is not just a building, although it is. It reminds us the fact it was a world that the Beis HaMikdash that we're hoping for and praying for is a reality of perfection, a reality where we have God in our lives in a very strong way, and we have peace and health and all those things. And so when we catch ourselves and being a little frustrated about some of these restrictions, the idea is to say, oh, it's because of the fact that we live in an imperfect world, and to turn to God and to ask God to repair this world and to rebuild this world. And the Gemara says that only a person who properly mourns the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, that is a person who will merit to see the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash. We should see it. B'mher b'yamin speeding their days. Yes?